Today on Business Insight, we take a look at how an export-driven economy is pivotal in fixing the Naira crisis. Welcome. I am Vivian Oguche. Let's begin with the day's top stories. Alfreda Amebasi is standing by.
A beautiful morning to you. This is Business News. The Central Bank of Nigeria has announced an impressive surge in the nation's total money supply, hitting 66.4 trillion naira in September 2023. This significant increase, which doubled since February 2020, is credited to the central bank's proactive measures in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Notably, the devaluation of the naira in June played a role, contributing an additional 10 trillion naira to the money supply. This growth has been reflected in key areas like demand deposits and quasi-money, signifying heightened liquidity. The concurrent increase in credit extended to both the government and the private sector indicates a changing economic environment, triggering concerns about potential inflation, fluctuating exchange rates, and the appeal of investment opportunities. And a new development, the Nigerian Nuclear Regulatory Authority, NNRA, has received a €1 million grant from the European Union, EU, for an international nuclear safety cooperation project. This grant, following approval from the International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA, aims to enhance Nigeria's nuclear safety and security measures. The project focuses on capacity development, training, and refining regulatory frameworks, ensuring compliance with international standards for nuclear energy use. Despite enthusiasm, there are concerns about safety, emphasizing the need for meticulous handling of this initiative. And away from that, TikTok and YouTube are exploring the possibility of applying for e-commerce licenses in Indonesia following the country's ban on e-commerce transactions on social media platforms. The ban, implemented by Indonesia's Trade Ministry, was designed to safeguard small and mid-sized offline merchants and protect users' data. TikTok, with a user base of 125 million in Indonesia, had plans to invest billions in building its e-commerce service in the country. YouTube is also considering an e-commerce license, but neither platforms have confirmed the move yet. Meta Platforms, owner of Facebook and Instagram, has applied for a permit allowing the promotion of goods on its platforms, although no direct e-commerce transactions will be permitted. Stock, commodities, and currency market trends comes next after this break. Stay tuned. Thank you for staying with us. At the close of Thursday's trading session on the Nigerian Stock Exchange, NGX, a total of 329,660,250 shares were traded in 5,998 deals. This corresponds to a market value of 4,410,533,590,590 naira. Compared with Wednesday's NGX trading day, Thursday's data shows a 3% improvement in volume, a 30% decline in turnover, and a 4% decline in deals. The current market capitalization of the Nigerian Stock Exchange stands at 36,900 billion naira. In total, 120 NGX-listed equities participated in trading, with 23 gainers and 18 losers. Multiverse Mining and Exploration led the gainers with a 9.74% share price appreciation, closing at 2.93 naira per share, followed by Champs, Cavitin Offshore Support Group, and FTN Cocoa Processors. On the losing side, eTransact International experienced the most significant decline with a 10% end-of-day price depreciation, closing at 7.56 naira per share, followed by Sunu Assurances Nigeria, Deep Capital Management and Trust, and Eterna. Fidelity Bank recorded the highest trading volume with 50,300,000 shares, followed by Access Holdings, Champs, and United Bank for Africa. And at the close of Thursday's trading session on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, JSE, a total of 229,162,349 shares were traded in 304,132 deals. This corresponds to a market value of 14,548,688,967.8 ZAR. Compared with Wednesday's JSE trading day, Thursday's data shows a 12% improvement in volume and a 6% improvement in turnover. The current market capitalization of Johannesburg Stock Exchange is 16 trillion ZAR. In total, 323 JSE listed equities participated in trading, with 110 gainers and 180 losers. IoTech Solutions led the gainers with a 33.33% share price appreciation, closing at 0.80 ZAR per share, followed by Trustco Group Holdings, E-Media Holding, and Insimbi Industrial Holding. On the losing side, Textile Property Fund experienced the most significant decline with a 14.29% and end-of-day price depreciation, closing at 2.40 ZAR per share, followed by Huge Group, Equities Prop Fund, and York Timber Holdings. Sibanye Stillwater recorded the highest trading volume with 17.1 million shares, followed by Growth Point Properties, First Rand, and Life Healthcare Group Holdings. And in the commodities market, wheat is currently trading at 579 US cents per unit. Gold is valued at $1,973 and 22 cents per unit. Silver is priced at $22 and 48 cents per unit. Copper is being exchanged at $3 and 58 cents per unit. And lastly, Brent crude oil is trading at $88 and 96 cents per unit. And that wraps it up for us on the news. The show continues shortly with Vivian Oguche. I am Alfreda Ambebasi.
Well, thank you for staying with us. Now, the Naira is on the brink of breaching 1,000 per dollar after falling to an official record low of 999 last week officially. And just last week also, a former deputy governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Professor Kingsley Moghalu, said that the Naira's strength can only be restored by transitioning to an export-driven economy. right? So he went on to say fixing the naira for both short and long-term objectives is what is key. Now, for a deeper insight on this, I'm being joined virtually by Gospel Obele. Gospel is the chief economist, Streetnomics Limited. Gospel, thank you so much for being a part of the show this morning.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
Thank you so much. So let's start from the beginning. Why is the naira falling?
Well, very interesting question for many reasons. Yeah. First off is we don't have a productive economy. That's the very basic reason. Because at the heart of the currency value is the fact that you have an economy that produces, much more than it consumes. But in the Nigerian case, you don't even have production to start with. You have so much of consumption and also consumption that's reliant on importation. All right. So that's consumption reliant on importation has also driven heavy demand on foreign products. I also have the other bit that talks about demand for foreign services, healthcare, education, and the likes, and that's because these sectors are not working locally. So in terms of production of goods and services, and also production of basic services that individuals need to get through life. So that's on one end. On the other layer of things, the fact that it's not, the economy is not productive, there is now a gross mismanagement of the local currency. All right, it's a gross mismanagement of the local currency. There's also some form of policy inconsistency between the monetary authorities and the fiscal authorities. And we've seen that, in the previous years, coming from the ban of the 3 items previously, to withdrawing the license of some below the exchange operators, even to clamping down on crypto transactions, to attempt to redesign the currency, the naira swap, and all of these roller coaster of policies have sort of crippled the value of the currency significantly. Again, when you just suppose that with the fact that increasingly we are not producing, we are consuming more on a year-on-year. It puts us in a very, very, very status quo-ish situation, which technically is a retrogression, for the currency. And when you look at the supply side of the dollars, and the demand side for it, our supply window is literally very weak and very low compared to that high taste and demand for it. So when you just suppose that together, simple law of economics, the equilibrium price is going to go up, which is the exchange rate in this situation, because it always favors, higher demand, which will attract higher prices in context. So safe enough, that's just like a fairly detailed summary around why the naira is failing, and it will keep failing if we do not take our steps backward to fix the basic structural reform elements, introduce structural reforms, and fix the basic productivity and institutional management elements to drive a strong currency in the near future.
Gospel, as usual, right? So let's situate this. What does this mean for the man on the street, for the woman in the market, for you as an entrepreneur, the weakened state of the naira? How does this affect us in life generally, day-to-day activities?
I mean, it affects everything. It affects everything. A weakening or a devaluation or a drop in the value of the currency simply means that the average individual will need more naira notes. Will need more naira notes to sort of gain the same level of satisfaction. So meaning you have to spend more to buy bread, meaning you have to spend more to transport yourself, meaning you have to spend more to gain training, access to education and all that. And that's because the quality of the currency is failing. And because at the core of that fail is the fact that inflation is also rising, you have a double problem to deal with. So on a month-on-month, Nigerians are spending more amount of money buying a basket of tomatoes. Entrepreneurs are spending more money facilitating, production. In context, you're spending more money on fuel, you're spending more money on all of these elements, and the increased rise in prices as well has also impacted vis-a-vis on the value of the currency, because you don't have any productive base, to manage that exchange shock in terms of cost of living and all that. Even nations that have a strong productive base, the rise in the cost of living is also impacting the quality of life. Now think that they now talk less of nations who do not have that productive base like Nigeria. So it's impacting on all walks of life. And what it means on the grand scheme of things is that the average Nigerian is getting poorer on a month because you're spending more share of the income or more parts of the disposable income trying to survive. So dreams are hijacked. People cannot necessarily thrive at the point or level at which they want to get to, dream and aspire and all that, because the chances and the resources they need to get to that level are constantly shrinking every month. So that's the situation we find ourselves. And like I mentioned earlier on, it's self-destructive in its nature if nothing is done about it right now.
On another channel, you were quoted last year, November, as saying that the Naira cannot truly regain its value. Do you still stand by your words?
Well, that's quite some interesting research that has been done. So yeah, I mean, when I say the Naira cannot truly regain its value, I'm speaking to the patterns of policies and the patterns through which the Nigerian currency has been managed. And I mean, I still stand by that if those patterns continue. I mean, I said that last year and look at where we are today, right? So safe to say that, technically I was correct in the last 1 year. So except those patterns change, except the behavioral elements around the national currency changes, all right? And what we're seeing right now is the introduction of palliatives, introduction of social and conditional cash transfer. Again, the behavioral pattern is still the same, all right? Until that behavioral pattern changes, until the policies change, until the reform elements are more driven towards a productive economy and facilitating some form of access to market for Nigerian SMEs who already can export or who are already export ready, until we begin to change the whole dynamics, all right? Until we begin to relax consumption by creating local incentives. All that simply means that you don't discourage people. Sorry, you don't only try to encourage people to consume made in Nigeria or discourage them from importing. No, you have to create the replica of the standard of those services they are trying to access. So create quality healthcare, quality education, ensure that there's food security at the quality and quantity required for the population. Then you now see that Nigeria would naturally tilt towards made in Nigeria. So made in Nigeria is not only a media campaign. It should be a productive campaign in terms of, enabling the right productivity drivers and all that. So anything short of all these elements, I mean, I still stand by that. So it's likely not going to regain its value.
About the backlog of forex that Nigeria is battling right now, up to $7 billion. Is this one of the factors that's responsible for the failing of the Naira?
Well, again, because there's been a deficit in the supply gap in terms of the supply of that dollar currency. And not just a deficit in supply, there's been constantly increase in its demand. All right. So when you put those two together, you will be dealing with a lot of backlog, in terms of deficit. So you don't only have the fact that you're not meeting up with in terms of supply and external reserves, your demand is also increasing. So, but I don't think that's one of the main, it's a part of the problem, but it's not one of the major problems. In fact, even nations that have stronger currencies have backlogs, supply deficits and all the likes. I think the problem is the fact that we're not a productive nation. I mean, until we face that truth, lots and lots and lots and lots of our policies will be as though you're trying to contain or fetch water with a basket. And you agree with me that you won't be able to take any substance with that. All right. So yeah, so it's part of the problem, but it's not in any way close to, the very basic necessary condition that we need to meet, which is, ensuring that the economy is productive.
So as we wrap up this segment with you, what are the just in a nutshell, right? What are the recommendations you will make as per short and long-term strategies to actually fix the Naira crisis we are fixing? So this is you tying up your thoughts with a ribbon right now as we let you go shortly.
Thank you very much. So in terms of short term, I will think of the service sector. Because to talk about production, you need impact, you need lots of investment to industrialize and all of that. So it will not come down to money. But if you look at the services sector, it's already holding about 56% of current economic activities in terms of GDP right now. And even globally, digital services surpassed global goods traded by 15%. So that's to tell you that Nigeria is really positioned to make the most of its service sector. And all we just need to do is to organize that market and position it for exports. Many young entrepreneurs and individuals are already freelancing for many remote companies abroad. So it's already happening. You don't need to do anything significant. You just need to organize the market, and ensure that the exchange window is properly tracked and government has probably a percentage and create more incentives to encourage more young people to play in that space. Once you can begin to do that, then create access to markets for lots of SMEs who are already export ready. All right, so create that access to markets and all of that. They will begin to get ourselves into a position where 96% of the Nigerian economy, which is non-oil based, can begin to, productively impute into the revenue block of the economy, which is technically again FX supply and all of that. So those are my initial thoughts for the short to medium term. On the long term, those productivity drivers are the only sustainable path to dealing with this currency valuation menace we're faced with.
You, Gospel, and I dare to call you a friend of the house at this point. Thank you so much for always being gracious to us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Have a wonderful day ahead. Yeah.
All right, Gospel Ebeles, whom I've been talking with, he is the Chief Economist, Streetnomics Limited. And we're going to be wrapping up this first segment. And when we come back, we will be talking to Dayo Lomoagun. Dayo is a fellow chartered accountant. He is an author and a public speaker. And of course, he'll be speaking to our topic today, fixing the Naira. Stay with me, yeah? I'll be right back.
The Three Wise Men. Iconic sculptures and statues adorn major metropolitan cities of the world. In Lagos, Nigeria, the statue of three men designed to depict the state's cultural heritage and to usher in visitors and tourists into the ever-accommodating center of excellence is no doubt an astounding work of art. Originally built under the administration of Colonel Raji Rasaki, designed by Bodun Shodende in 1991 and standing over 12 feet high, referred to as Agba Meta or Aro Meta, the three sculptured chiefs were placed along the Lagos-Ibadan toll gate to welcome people coming into Lagos State. The statue called the Three Wise Men by many has become a major signature for the state. Three white-capped chiefs clad in white wrappers, knotted across their shoulders and with clenched right fists are shown in the artwork. The images fascinate and create impressions in the minds of visitors coming into the state, captivating the attention of visitors who look with keen interest, pondering on the messages which the posture of the engraved images signifies. The Three Wise Men has been relocated thrice from its original position at Ojodu Berger end of Lagos-Ibadan Expressway to Magodo area before its final relocation to its present site at Olowo Drive. The sculpture has suffered severe damages over the years and renovated. Bodun Shodende, through this sculpture, depicted the highest honor that can be afforded to anyone in the Eko greeting tradition. The Three Wise Men, Arometa, Souq Enlightenment.
Hi, my name is Fred Amata and you're on to Souq News.
If you are watching this channel for the first time, make sure you continue to watch it because this is Souq News.
Shout out to Souq News. Actually, I don't know. I really enjoyed the little moment I spent with you, and I think with more of this.
Souq News. Here's the Souq News who had the courage to transcend a locked off camera and actually have a conversation with a human being. It's a pleasure, Souq News. Thank you very much.
You want to advertise or put
Welcome back, and like we promised, Dayo, one of the leading economic analysts in Nigeria, is right here with us. Dayo, thank you so much for being part of the show this morning. All right, Dayo, if you can hear me, I'll just go on with my question, right? One of the leading economists in Nigeria and a former governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, like I said earlier on, Professor Kingsley Moghalu, has said that the Naira's recovery hinges, right, by an export-driven economy. Do you agree?
Oh, good morning. Good morning to Nigeria. Thank you for having me. So I think clearly you cannot agree less. The renowned professor is correct. I think he knows his onions. He's been in the field. He's an expert, and he can speak with authority. And I think I agree with him completely. In that space is garbage in, garbage out. If you don't sell, then you don't get forest. If you're not exporting, you don't get forest. So you got to be productive in goods and in services and sell outside of your borders, outside the shores of your country, so you can attract foreign exchange. That is how it works. So he's completely correct. To solve these issues permanently, we got to be an exporter, a producing economy, such that we can produce what we need and sell excess and get forests into the country.
Will the central bank restore forex open positions? Is one of the questions I'll be asking Dio when we return, because we'll take a short break now so that we'll have Dio readjust his gadget, and then we'll be right back. Stay with us.
Hi, my name is Fred Amata, and you are on to Souq News.
If you are watching this channel for the first time, make sure you continue to watch it, because this is Souq News.
Shout out to Souq News. Actually, I don't know. I really enjoyed the little moment I spent with you, and I think with more of this.
Souq News. Here's the Souq News, who had the courage to transcend a locked off camera and actually have a conversation with a human being. It's a pleasure, Souq News. Thank you.
A great team must have people that have character, the first C, competence, the second C, and commitment. the third C. In an earlier impact, I'd shared the 5 forces of transformation being vision, team, time, resources, and resolve. And we had agreed that the one that we could do something about effectively and quickly is the team, making sure, in essence, that we have the right people on the bus and we have the right people sitting on the right seat in the bus. What are the considerations of selecting a winning team? In my view, there are 3 critical C's that must come into play for every member of a winning team. And the first C is character. It's important that we have common values, all the members of the team, to reduce friction. Where do we draw a line in the sand? What we do according to our moral compass and what will we not do? What are the behaviors that lead to the values we have professed? Character. So every member of the team must have above board character. The second C is competence. This is mainly the rigor of your logic, knowing everything about your area. A lot of times, and more often than not, we do have that rigor of logic. It's usually our communication of our logic that is faulty. The last one, but not the least, is commitment. During the era of COVID, when we pivoted to online work, lots of people got 1, distracted, or 2, trying to do 2 things at the same time. So they are not working for only one project or one company. I mean, even if you are freelance, when you are on a project, you face that project squarely. When you don't have that commitment as a team member, you breach trust and you cause the team to have a common breach of trust, which causes friction. People want to feel that you've got my back and I've got your back. And when they don't feel that, then everybody leaves the load. So a great team must have people that have character, first C, competence, the second C, and commitment.
Welcome back. So we've been taking a look at the free fall of the Naira, and I got Dayo with me right now. Dayo, it's good to have you back. So the country's forex reserves fell to $33.5 billion in September from $37 billion in January. That's what the CBN says. Now, on top of these, Nigerian banks are not allowed to have open positions on the dollar, meaning that they cannot buy forex for their own account from the market or speculate on the value of the currency. How big of a deal are these factors when it comes to the Naira feeling? Dayo, let me
I think one of the challenges we have now is that is inconsistency in this policy. Sorry, can you hear me clearly?
Now, could you start from the beginning? What were you saying, really?
So I think the major challenges we're having around that is the inconsistency in policies. A good policy should, you see, there's nothing good about a policy if you cannot achieve the desired result. So you have, when you're doing your policy, then you have to put in safeguard, you have to put in measure that ensure that these policies are successful, are implemented well. Otherwise, people are out to sabotage the policies. People are out to sabotage the policy for their selfish interests, and you cannot stop that. But the only way you can do is to build in safeguard that makes sure, regardless of what people do, they cannot sabotage that process. So it's like when you are printing your Naira note or your currency. Anybody who have wanted to be criminal to print Naira or to print the dollar or something, but there are measures that have been put in place that whatever you do, you cannot print yourself. So you still have to go through the normal system where people get it. So it's the same thing. Now, those policies, it's because when you say the banks cannot access they cannot go to the market and access dollar themselves, and there's continued need. The demand for this is going up every day, and a lot of arbitrage going on around the dollar trading. All of these are impacting on the naira, and that is what has happened today. That's partially causing the free fall of the naira, because you make policy, yes, good as they seem. There are some measures that have to be taken. There are some safeguard that has to be built in to ensure that those policies are successful. Otherwise, a very good policy may turn to be a very bad policy. And that's what I see with the policies of government and CBN currently.
The objective, rather, of this show is to drive us to solutions, right? One of the things Professor Moalu said, that fixing the naira is a combination of long and short-term strategies. But I'd like to pick your brains a little bit. What are your recommendations as we wrap this up now as to how Nigeria's naira can be fixed? I understand that Dio has left us for a short while, but I do hope we'll get him to come back. Now, from what Gospel Ebele had said earlier on, my first guest, he said that the solution to this problem, fixing the naira, is Nigeria becoming a country that is productive, produce for the nation, and also produce the quality of goods that can be exported to the other nations surrounding us, as well as foreign countries, you know, far from us. And so, in other words, Gospel Ebele was re-echoing what Professor Kingsley Moghalu had said earlier on, that the only way, or one of the long-term ways of fixing the naira, is to have an export-driven economy, which is something Dayo, who has been my guest, has been nodding his head to. I do hope that we eventually get Dayo to come finish his thoughts as we try to wrap up this segment. So why don't we take another short break? We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Only two people have the patience and the persistence and the constant knocking on the door and staying with the customer, following through, to go from engagement through to skepticism, through to tolerance, through to acceptance, through to desire where they get the order. Today in the session with the delegates, we're talking about fit to fight in the setting up for geometric growth session of the masterclass. And fit to fight is really dealing with sales because businesses are run on margins and margin come from sales. So one of the frameworks is really the sales progression. And the sales progression talks about 100 people start on a sales opportunity, a big opportunity. At the point that they start at engagement, at the time they go to the point of where the customer is skeptical or reluctant, many of the salespeople, 60 of them will drop out, which represents 60%, because they mistake reluctance and skepticism with rejection. It's not a rejection, it's just that the customer is not convinced. He probably has objections or he has questions which need to be tackled. So 40 are left. And by the time you progress to what we call tolerance, so at this point in time, the customer is taking your calls, but he's not 100% there yet. So, and at this point in time, another 30 of the salespeople drop out. So 90 have dropped out, it's only 10 left at the point of tolerance. Then comes acceptance. So the customer has made up his mind to give you the opportunity of this engagement. But because it's taking such a long time, you are nowhere to be found for him to give you the purchase order. And he cannot chase you. Lo and behold, after the 10 people that were left, 8 people drop out at acceptance. The customer wants to give them this business. It could be a tailor, it could be a caterer, and they want to, but you are not there because you probably lost patience and left. So by the time it gets to desire, there's only 2 people left that will then get the order or the purchase order. And that's the typical scenario in any sales progression. Only 2 people have the patience and the persistence and the constant knocking on the door and staying with the customer, following through to go from engagement through to skepticism, through to tolerance, through to acceptance, through to desire where they get the order. And it's not that the customer has rejected those other 98. They rejected themselves. How strong are you? How long is your patience? And how much do you follow through? Come and attend the Also Leadership Academy. You cannot miss Fit to Fight if you really want to grow your sales. Thank you.
Welcome back from that long break. Well, this is still Business Insight, and we'll be talking about fixing the Naira. Initially, I had Gospel Ebele join me, and just a few minutes ago, I had Dayo Lamoagun, who is a fellow chartered accountant and author and public speaker. Unfortunately, Dayo can't rejoin us due to his network and other exigencies when it comes to live shows like this. But we do hope that we're able to drive home the point about fixing the Naira, which the 2 guests I had unanimously agreed upon was that Nigeria has to become a country that is able to produce products for itself, and as well as quality products that can be exported from the nation. That way you can have a peg, an anchor on which to fix the failing Naira. We'll be here again same time next week, since today is Friday. So I do hope you have yourself a fantastic weekend ahead. I am Vivian Uguche. Bye for now.